Hello everyone, we are the Chapter 7 reporters, and I am the first reporter, Joanna Di Pichao, and our topic for today is about complexity in supply chain. The word complexity in supply chain is not about complicated, but rather it describes a condition of interconnectedness and interdependencies across a network. A typical example would be a globally operating corporation with multiple production sites. Business network is about sharing information or services between people, businesses, or groups to accomplish certain objectives. Interdependence, on the other hand, is about relying on each other businesses for survival and growth, tungod ni sa mga worst events na dili malikayan sa business environment. The sources of complexity. First is network complexity. It is about links that exist in a network, like communication media or software platforms. Second, process complexity. This is about assessment of the tasks or events that make up the process and through which a product, activity, or decision flows before reaching the output stage. Third is range complexity. It is about the range of product or services that they offer sa market na ay tendency to grow rather than reduce. Fourth is product complexity. It is about the design of product. Iya ang materials or components na magamit. So kung di sakto ang pag-manage, complexity leads to increased cost and decreased customer value proposition. And that's all for my report.
Customer complicity. Customer complicity arises as a result of too many non-standard service options or customized solutions. These differences will be increased further as a result of too availability of different service options or packages and or customizations possibilities. Even though from a sales and marketing perspective, there may be advantages to be gained from offering a range of options to customers. These decisions must be tempered by a detailed knowledge of their cost and agility implications. Ultimately, the only complicity that can be justified is that complicity which delivers real value for which customers are prepared to pay. A problem that is faced by many businesses is that they have limited understanding of the true cost of servicing individual customers. Number 6, supplier complicity. The size of the supplier base can add to supply chain complexity by increasing the number of relationships that must be managed as well as increasing total transactions cost. Because one of the prerequisites requisites for agility is a high level of collaborations working with key suppliers. This implies a high level of active supplier management and supplier involvement in process integrations. Instead, a better option, if available, is to have a lead supplier across a category of products who takes responsibility for the management of that category across a number of suppliers. For example, in the same way, a logistics service company such as UPS might coordinate a number of logistics and transporter providers for a client company. 7. Organizational complicity. Most businesses have traditionally organized around functions and departments, and their organization charts have many levels and tend to be hierarchical in their structure. A further problem is that over time, the functions have a tendency to become silos with their own agendas, and they can lose sight of the fundamental purpose of the business. They are cross-functional, and hence there is a stronger emphasis on teams and on process improvement in terms of speed and reliability. reliability. As organizations grow, either organically or through merger and acquisitions, the likelihood is that they will become more cumbersome and less able to respond rapidly to change. Consequently, there is a constant need to re-engineering existing processes and to root out the complexity that will inevitably arise if things are left to themselves. Organization Organizational complexity can also be ex- exacerbated by having to work across time zones and cultures as a result of the globalizations of business. Number 8, information complicity. Today's supply chains are underpinned by the exchange of information between all entities and levels that comprise the complete and end-to-end work. As a result of this distortion, the data that is used as input to planning and forecasting activities can be flowed, and hence forecast accuracy is reduced and more costs are incurred. In a sense, information complicity in a supply chain is directly or indirectly influenced by the preceding 7 sources of complicity. Network and process complicity will impact the number of stages, steps, and levels through which the information must pass. Customer and supply complicity means that the exchange of data increases significantly, and organizational complicity implies more levels through which information must pass as well as more handoff from one function to another. The antidote to information complicity is first, a reduction in order 7 sources of complicity as well as greater visibility. The cost of complicity. It can be argued that an increasing proportion of total end-to-end costs in the supply chain are driven by a complicity in one form or another. Often, this cost may not be readily transparent as they are hidden in general overheads or cost of carrying inventory, which, as we observe on Chapter 3, are not always properly accounted for. Underlying much of the cost of complicity in supply chain is the Pareto law, the so-called 80-20 rule. It was suggested that an 80-20 relationship exists with regard to customers and products. Typically, 80% of the profit derived from 20% of customer, and likewise, 80% of the profit comes from just 20% of the product. Generally, this 80-20 relationship applies across most elements of the supply chain and is a key contributor to complicity and hence cost. Sometimes, when performing the 80-20 analysis across the product range, it is tempting to suggest that where a long tail exists, it should be removed through product relationship rationalization rationalization because the long tail represents such a large number of products. Even though individual item sales levels are low, if inventory and distributions cost can be reduced by creating a single virtual inventory through work with partners across multiple channels, the economic may be transformed. So that will be all my part. The second reporter will report his part.
Good day everyone, my name is Michelle Apuadora and I'll be reporting the product design and supply chain complexity. Time to market and time to volume. Time to market is an decisions of functionality of everyone to know the products and can increase manufacturing, and then complexity and reduce flexibility and responsiveness. Added complexity through the back of commonality. So, that is the decisions of product that is design the impact of the bill of materials. So, the low levels of components is the commonality will added complexity. The next one is increase the replenishment of lead times. So that is some design decisions will determine the choice of supplier, so that the impact of replenishment lead time will supply source is offshore. And then the next one is the supply chain vulnerability. Okay, it is the design decision will involves the unreliable supply. So the sources could personally increase the chance of supply chain and disruption. And then the next one is after sales support. So this is the products requiring the sales support, so that the service parts will design of the impact, and the product will have implications for inventory levels. So the next one is late stage customization. It is the ability of the decision to postpone the final configuration of the packaging of the product, and then it will be enhanced and constrained by the design decision. And then the next one is the mastering complexity. So because the supply chain is such a major source of the total end of the pipeline, so the cost as well as being a significant will inhibitor of the what we call this responsiveness. So it is essential to us that complexity will becomes a priority. The next one is the complexity management. It deals with the analysis and optimization of complexity in the enterprises. So the first one is the understand the sources of complexity. Number 2, undertake the Pareto ratio 80-20 analysis. And then the number 3 is the to focus on the long tail. And then the next one is the elements of the complexity and the add of the value and which do not. And then the next one is to seek, eliminate, and non-value adding complexity, so that to manage the supply chain complexity and understand where it is we're going to coming from, and then to gather information and starting point of identifying the sources of complexity. So that's all. Thank you.